Hi everybody, and welcome back for another instalment of Teach Me in 10, the video series that is brought to you by LabTube, which is part of the Technology Networks group. My name is Molly Campbell and I'm a senior science writer for Technology Networks. Here at Teach Me in 10, we ask scientists to join us and explain a scientific research area or a scientific concept in less than 10 minutes. We're trying to make science as accessible as possible for you. The 10-minute videos provide a brief overview of the topic, and then if you want to learn more, you can check out the further reading that we list in our video descriptions. This week, I'm joined by Abbey, the food scientist, who is a regular on YouTube explaining different concepts about food research and what you can do in a food science career. In this episode of Teach Me in 10, Abbey is going to explain to us where a food's flavour comes from.
Have you ever been eating a food and you thought to yourself either, oh, I really like this flavor, or maybe the opposite, like, oh, this flavor is terrible. But what did you mean by flavor exactly? Did you mean the smell of the food is wrong, or is the texture off, or was it certain molecules in the food that you liked or disliked the taste of? Well, flavor is actually a mixture of all these different factors and many more, and it's actually quite a complex area to study. So what I want to talk about today is what is the flavor of the food and 6 different factors that can influence your perception of the flavor of food you're eating. Now let's start with a basic definition of flavor. So flavor encompasses all the physical and chemical inputs in your mouth and nasal cavity when you're eating a food. So this could mean many different factors influence flavor. Of course, taste would be one factor that influences flavor. So would be the aroma of the food, color, texture, even your life experiences, your prior life experiences with the food have the chance to impact how you perceive the overall flavor. So let's talk about some of these factors today. I want to talk about at least 6 factors that can influence the flavor of the food, starting with the first, which is aroma, which is arguably the most important factor. So taste is not the most important factor. Actually, the aroma or the odor of food greatly influences the flavor. Now, what impacts the aroma of food is actually the volatile molecules from that food. Now, what I mean by volatile is there's certain molecules that were in the food, but they might have been transferred to the air. They volatilized into the air, and then they can make their way to our nasal cavity and be received by receptor cells in our nose. So that's the smell of the food, maybe before you even ate it. But also when you're chewing the food, you can you sort of break up the matrix of the food as you're chewing, and this can help other molecules volatilize and go in the air in your mouth. And actually these molecules can take the retronasal pathway, so they can go to the back of your mouth, up into your nasal cavity, and this also leads to aroma or odor of the food. So molecules that are volatile could come straight into your nose, that is the orthonasal pathway, or if you're already eating the food, they can take the retronasal pathway. But why I say aroma is probably the most important factor of flavor is that we are more sensitive to smells. So it's estimated that we have over 400 different types of receptor cells in our nose looking for these volatile molecules. And this means we can recognize millions of different flavors, things like chocolate, coffee, vanilla. We are quite sensitive to smells, especially compared to taste, which I'll talk about later. But one interesting factor of aroma of food is often it's linked to certain memories or our prior experiences with these foods. So the second factor I want to talk about is memory, which might surprise you, but maybe there's some food your parents used to make, your mom or dad used to make homemade cookies. And even as an adult, if you smell that aroma of the homemade cookies, you will notice it quickly transfers you back to your childhood. Maybe you start feeling more like a kid, you feel happy. The smell of a food can take you back to a totally different place, and you start experiencing different emotions you were not feeling a second ago. Now, it's hypothesized that this link between smell and memory is due to the fact that these are processed in the same area of the brain. So odors and long-term memories, emotions, cognition, these are all processed in the limbic system of the brain. And that's hypothesized why we sort of entangle these long-term memories with different smells. So absolutely, your prior experiences, whether they were good or bad, will impact your perception of that food's flavor even as you grow older and these memories are from further back in your life. You attach good feelings and bad feelings to certain foods based on memory. Now to the third factor, which is probably the one you are most familiar with. This is taste. Of course, taste is key to flavor. And what I mean by taste is something very specific. It's how molecules in the food interact with the receptor cells in your taste bud. Mostly on your tongue is where you find your taste buds. So there's certain molecules in foods that trigger these taste buds. So for example, sugars elicit a sweet response, whereas acids are known for a sour response. And you probably learned in elementary school, we say we have 5 basic tastes or 5 responses. So we have sweet, sour, bitter, salty, and umami. And so we have 5 basic tastes, whereas if we compare that back to aroma, in our nose we have over 400 different types of receptors. So again, I just want to point out aroma influences the flavor of food much more than taste. On to the next factor, which is the one I find the most interesting, and this is the role of irritants in the flavor of food. And you might be thinking, why would I ever eat irritants? But actually, you probably eat foods that cause you a small amount of pain. These are things like spicy foods, mint or menthol, causing that cooling sensation. Another good example is carbonated beverages. They can cause a tingling or stinging sensation in your mouth. These are all irritants, and they trigger free nerve endings in our nose, mouth, and eyes. So these free nerve endings are from this big nerve in the front of our face that covers everything from the eyes down to your mouth. And these free nerve endings are looking out for irritants. And so if we eat spicy foods, these free nerve endings go off saying something's happening here, we're burning in here, and your body responds. And it responds as if this food is an irritant. So think about when you eat spicy chicken wings. All of a sudden your nose is running, you're sneezing, your eyes are watering. That is your body's response to trying to dilute the irritant and get it out of your body. Right? So it's trying to get the compound that is causing pain out of your body. And so you may not think you eat foods that cause you pain, but we often do eat a lot of different foods that cause us a small amount of pain, and our body responds trying to get that irritant out. Now on to a very obvious factor. This is texture. And texture is important because we just have a lot of assumptions of what a food's texture should be. So we want chips to be crunchy and crispy. We want ice cream to be smooth and creamy. And if that ice cream now has large ice crystals, it's hard, it's more crunchy, this really impacts the overall flavor and eating experience. And all that's changed in this ice cream is really the texture. You would say the aroma would be the same, the taste would be the same, but those big ice crystals make this experience a bad one. And you would say it has a bad flavor, when actually it's just the texture has changed. But we really have certain expectations of food products and what their texture should be. And the last factor I want to talk about is color. Color, again, we just have so many expectations when it comes to a food product's color. And say, for example, I hand you a purple hard candy. What flavor do you think that purple candy is? I would say you would probably guess it was grape, because we assume purple candy is grape flavored. Green candy is lime flavored. We have all these expectations about a food's flavor simply due to color. And this is also how you grocery shop. Think about picking out fruits and vegetables. You often judge a food simply by how bright and vibrant its color is, where we think ripe foods are always these bright reds, yellows, and oranges. And we assume that without actually knowing much other information about that food product. So color is really important when it comes to the flavor of the food. So that's the 6 factors I wanted to talk about today. I hope, if anything, you have a much greater appreciation and understanding for the flavor of the food you eat, and maybe this can bring up some great dinner conversations.
Thank you so much to Abbey for joining us here at Teach Me in 10. We really enjoyed your video. If you'd like to learn more about Abbey's work, please make sure you check out her YouTube channel, which we've linked in the video description below. And if you'd like to learn more about food research more generally, please do check out the further reading also listed in the video description. We'll be back next week for another instalment of Teach Me in 10. If you can't wait until then, be sure you check out our LabTube channel. This is where you can find all of the videos that we've published so far. There's a huge variety of different videos on different topics, all 10 minutes in length. So make sure you check that out and see what you can learn. We'll be back next week. Until then, take care.